Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Early in the morning, but great attendance. And thank you very much for getting together for this event called Peoples and Planet, Addressing the Interlinked Challenges of Climate Change, Poverty, and Hunger in Asia and the Pacific. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to be your moderator today. My name is Yoko Watanabe. I'm from Asian Development Bank. I'm the Director of Environment. And wonderful to be hosting this event together with ESCAP-UNDP and Government of Nepal. So thank you very much, everyone. First of all, as a very brief introduction, let me say that it's a really honor to have this partnership and have this event at the high-level political forum this year against the backdrop of the compounding crisis of climate change, COVID, and the recent cost of living crisis and inequality has continued to grow and extended beyond income and increasing the vulnerability of individuals to threats such as food insecurity and enduring poverty. And the longstanding collaboration between ESCAP and UNDP through the Asia-Pacific SDG partnership serves as a platform for delivering knowledge and data to support the region to effectively implement and make progress on the SDGs. Particularly this year's theme is about climate change and food security, poverty, and that is really coming to a really critical juncture because climate change is really impacting the productivity of particularly agriculture, fisheries, and others. And this is a really important area of work that we need to tackle in partnership and put forces together. So in today's session, co-hosted with the Nepal government, we will be hearing the principles of three partner organizations, ADB, ESCAP, and UNDP, and who will be delivering the opening remarks. And we will then proceed to a roundtable discussion in which we have invited distinguished experts working on advancing key issues in the region, and particularly the Government of Nepal, represented by His Excellencies Mr. Thapa from the Permanent Representative of Nepal will be delivering remarks together with the distinguished panelists today. At the end of the roundtable discussion, there will be a Q&A segment for the audience, and both in person and online, and we will propose questions or make any relevant comments to the group. For the online audience, it's a pleasure to see, we can't see you, but thank you very much for attending this very important side event at the high-level political forum. And we will be seeing your comments through the chat box, and we will be able to pick up those as we proceed. So with this brief introduction, I would like to now hand it over to the opening remark. First, Ms. Armida Salcia Alisjabana, Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, ESCAP. It's an honor to have you, Madam, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yoko. Very much for the introduction as well as warm welcome. Distinguished participants, it is indeed my pleasure to say a few words at the site event today to discuss the interlinked challenges of climate change, poverty, and hunger in Asia and the Pacific. My appreciation extends to our partners, ADB and UNDP, for this continued partnership, and to the Government of Nepal for co-hosting this site event. Ambassador Tapa is here. As we are all aware, decades of remarkable progress in alleviating poverty and hunger are under threat by escalating impacts of climate change. Just to give you an example, last year alone, climate hazard affected over 47 million people and caused around 41 billion US dollar in economic losses across the region. The poorest countries bear the greatest burden of environmental impact, being highly exposed and poorly equipped to adapt to the intensifying climate shocks. The populations of least developed countries occupy mere 4% of the region's land surface, but account for 17% of total fatalities and 9% of the affected population in the region. Poor communities and households face these consequences, such as loss of lives and assets, lower agricultural and fishery yields, reduced labor productivity and income, as well as soaring food prices. So therefore, it have been impact significantly their economic and well-being. The current global, regional, and national policies are oftentimes crafted in silos, with climate action, poverty reduction, and food security strategies remaining largely disconnected. So hence, therefore, the topic of the site event, as well as the joint partnership report, in which we need more integrated policies as well as holistic approaches that have the potential to unlock synergies, optimize resources, and enable more effective implementation. The report pointed to the need to integrate poverty reduction priorities into climate policies to ensure that efforts to reduce emission do not exacerbate poverty and hunger. Likewise, climate responses need to be mainstreamed into poverty alleviation policies to address climate-related risks and impact. In this process, enhancing policy coordination and institutional capacities are essential to allow greater adaptability and better planning for effective implementation at the nexus. It is equally important to guide financing and investment activities into integrated approaches to improve resource allocation efficiency. At the same time, we need more innovative solutions, especially those impactful on multiple SDGs and tailored to the needs of underserved communities. If I may, I would like to give a few examples that have been showcased in the report. For example, harnessing climate-smart agricultural technologies and agroecological approaches to build resilient and sustainable agriculture and food systems, developing innovative financial instruments that incentivize investment in sustainable agricultural practices, as well as empowering local communities to co-create solutions tailored to their needs. And hence, I would like to reiterate the need to for stronger multi-stakeholder partnership and regional cooperation. They enable pooling of resources and expertise and foster implementation of integrated approaches, which is very critical to addressing these multifaceted challenges as posed by climate change. So with that, I'm looking forward to hear your views as well as the sharing of your experience, the lessons and best practices that many of you could share in this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Armida, in highlighting the importance of working on this nexus between food and climate change and poverty nexus, and also having a need for policy coordination and regional cooperation in this regard, and also highlighting some of the examples from the report. Thank you. So now we'll move forward with UNDP. Great to see you, Kani. The next speaker is Kani Wignaraja, the Assistant Secretary General and Director of the Regional Bureau for Asia and Pacific from United Nations Development Program. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yoko, and let me right away very much appreciate our co-hosts here, including Government of Nepal. Welcome, Ambassador Thapa. And of course, my sister Ibu here, Almeida, thank you for being here. And ADB, MDG Wuchong, who will join us online. I also want to recognize our ambassador from Timor-Leste, Ambassador Suarez. Lovely to have you, our DDG from Thailand, and also old friends like Emma. Lovely to have you with us here. So let me say that one of the reasons we picked this theme and did this joint analysis as ADB, ESCAP, and UNDP is in our region and probably across the world, North and South, we're seeing this divergence between people's expression of their expectations and of their needs and their rights, and national and global policy and investment choices being made. These two things are going in diagrammatically opposite directions. So it's not unusual if we see, just if I look now at Asia Pacific, and I look at the last 2 decades, it's been over 1.6 billion people that have been directly affected just by floods alone. And that is in over 90% of those affected globally. So you can see in this very economically dynamic region, the extent of disasters, climate-driven disasters that are taking place. So the loss is about 450 billion. That's the count we have put on this. Now, just to give you a comparator, that's the entire GDP of Bangladesh. And Bangladesh is one of our growing countries, right? It's a growing economy. The entire GDP of Bangladesh just wiped out by floods alone. So when UNDP put up the climate vote recently, it is no surprise to us, particularly among young voters, the way they express their feelings. And I'm going to take a very stark data point from this. 97% of all Afghans who were surveyed called for more support for poorer countries on climate. They put climate as their topmost priority. And this is something that's a real wake-up call. When I travel in Afghanistan, people are talking first about water. This is the receding water in this country is what is a life and death issue. So the shared research we've done shows the dire need in a region still very reliant on a rural economy. You know, you see the flashy big buildings of some mega cities, but the majority of Asia Pacific is rural. And that's also where a large part of people live their lives and get their jobs and livelihoods from. So if we don't shift the way our agriculture patterns work, and Stefanos is here from FAO, thank you, Stefanos, for joining us, we're not going to manage the large displacement of dignity, displacement of homes, displacement of jobs and incomes that is happening across our region. And by the end of the century, we are going to add 9 billion new inhabitants to this planet. How on earth, literally, how on earth are we going to keep them safe and healthy and outside of hunger if we don't change? So I just want to put 2 things as I close for your further reflection. For those of you who recollect when we were designing the SDG agenda and then we approached it, we folded in the unfinished business of the MDGs. And by doing so, it still held a key set of elements, including reduction, if not elimination, of extreme or absolute poverty. Now, our region has done really well on that indicator. We're now going to be faced in the next 6 years of an unfinished agenda on the SDGs. And I hope politically and from a very development practical point of view, we don't forget the unfinished business of the SDGs. And we really accelerate hard behind this. So, for example, more regenerative, nature positive solutions to sectors like agriculture and energy are found. Second, we have to put a big bet on science and technology, and not just in the North, but the diffusion of this as global public goods. So we don't want a repeat of what happened with the COVID vaccine. Science and tech that supports a greener, safer, healthier planet should be something that is a GPG and open and shared across our region. So I think we can't proceed repeating our old ways of working that left too many countries, too many people behind. I think now it's truly a matter of survival that we do things differently. Back to you, Yo.
Thank you so much, Kani, for that remarkable remark. First of all, to highlight the impact of climate change to agriculture and productivity, and also the need for going beyond the business as usual and work on more the nature-based and nature-positive investment in science and technology. So thank you so much, Kani. Moving forward, we will be having a recorded message from Woo Chong-eum, who is a Managing Director, Director General of the Asia Development Bank. So the video is on.
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to speak on behalf of the Asian Development Bank. First, I would like to thank ESCAP and UNDP for our long-standing partnership. Today's session tackles a critical question. How do we protect both people and the planet in the face of the current global challenges? This is the focus of this year's SDG Partnership Report, which addresses the complex nexus of climate change, poverty, and food security. Asia and the Pacific, the world's most disaster-prone region, has seen decades of development progress set back in recent years, especially on SDGs 1 and 2. But diverse solutions are emerging across the region to tackle this. In India, geospatial data is improving farm management. In Indonesia, nature-based projects ensure decent work and a just transition. In Pacific small island states, disaster insurance is boosting climate resilience. At ADB, poverty reduction has been our core focus for nearly 60 years. It will continue to be the overarching objective. But now we all know that without effectively addressing climate issues, we cannot achieve the poverty reduction mandate. As a region's climate bank, we have an ambition of delivering $100 billion of our own climate finance cumulatively through 2030. This is bolstered by our recent capital adequacy reforms that provide $100 billion additional financing capacity in the next decade. We're also launching innovative financing facility for climate change in the Asia and the Pacific, ESCAP. ESCAP is an innovative financing mechanism which can turn donors' $1 guarantee of our outstanding portfolio to unleash up to $5 of additional investment. An example of an ADB-led initiative that targets the nexus of climate change, poverty, and gender is our Community Resilience Partnership Program. This program is a multi-donor initiative to help local communities in the region scale up investments in climate adaptation with a gender window that specifically supports women-focused investments. ADB is also building food security through a $14 billion package in response to the recent food systems crisis. This will, among others, focus on agricultural value chains, including lending to agribusinesses and microfinance programs for smallholder farmers. Finally, our technical assistance programs focus on institutional strengthening of partners, including their capacity to manage climate change, which is one of the key recommendations of our partnership report. These solutions and many others require multi-stakeholder collaboration, including greater cooperation with the private sector to drive innovation and attract much-needed investments to accelerate progress on the SDGs. Our region faces complex challenges. Governments, multilateral and bilateral partners, the private sector, civil society, and academia must collaborate and accelerate efforts like never before. Let's work together to create lasting impact.
Great. Thank you, Chong. We miss him here, but he's with us in spirit, and also a very important message that moving forward, we really need to be innovative in terms of working on climate and particularly food security nexus under the SDGs and to achieve those goals. So with that, we are very happy to move on to the next segment of our panel. Basically, we are moving towards a moderated discussion on a roundtable discussant. Very, very rich set of very distinguished colleagues here. We have His Excellency, Mr. Dionisio da Costa Babosores, and Ms. Catalina Fatumros, sorry. Yes. And then, and then the third person is Stefanos Fotio. And then Emma Torres, good friend of UNDP, and Fratik Rijal, April Forteria. So what we are doing under this roundtable discussion, we are asking 2 questions to each of the discussants to cover within a 3-4 minutes intervention. The first question is about key issues and challenges in your country or sector in the face of increasing interlinked climate change, poverty, and hunger. What are the key issues and challenges? The second question is promising solutions or policy measures and reforms that can enable transformative change to stimulously address those challenges that we face. And so both on the key issues and challenges and the promising solutions that make transformative change. So we'll kickstart with these discussants, but we will have also ample time for others, and it's really an honor to have such a good turnout to this side event. So we also hope to have a good time for a discussion after this stimulative roundtable discussion. So let me first hand it over to His Excellency Mr. Dionisio da Costa Babosores, who is a permanent representative of Timor-Leste to the UN. Thank you very much, sir, for coming here.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, as well as giving me the floor to say a few words with Madam Kani and Ambassador Lapa, and also dear friends. I think, as you all know, the climate change has severe impacts on the region, and particularly in small countries like Timor-Leste, and issues that actually ranging from rising temperature, sea level, increased frequency and intensity of natural disasters, and changes in precipitation patterns, as well as leading to drought and floods, and also other climate-related events that damage agriculture productivity and leading to food insecurity and poverty, displacement of communities, and all those actually exacerbate poverty and hunger and become a strain in economic resources. Two economic resources are increased development and poverty reduction. So, I mean, these issues are not new to us. Climate change worsens poverty and hunger. Poverty and hunger exacerbate vulnerability to climate change. Climate change and poverty perpetuate hunger and food insecurity. As you might know that, and we have listened to many people around the world, including academics, practitioners, and so on, that we need to use multifaceted approaches, such as implementing climate resilience agricultural practices, investing in renewable energy and disaster preparedness, enhancing social protection programs and access to education and healthcare, and then promoting sustainable development and economic growth as a way to actually escape away from the consequences of these interlinkages elements that we've been talking about. Timor-Leste, as you know, based on a statistic that was provided and hasn't been changed since the last 7 years, I think 40% of the population actually back in the 2017 were considered to be poor or face the multidimensional poverty. And then 1 in 3 children were malnourished. Education is also an issue in the rural areas. And so you can imagine with the impact of COVID and then also the impact of climate hazards in 2022, 2021, of course, has exacerbated it. Until now, there is no study that actually be conducted properly to assess the issue. So I think ADB, ESCAP, and also other international agencies would actually, UNDP particularly, could team up in this case to actually do an assessment of Timor-Leste as a whole. Because of the political, a bit of political situation that actually started back in 2017, 18, 19, the governments in place actually have been governments, coalition governments, so they have not been able to deliver political solutions well. So I think in this situation, I mean, I would advise that, you know, such prestigious institutions that have been long associated with Timor-Leste, UNDP has an office there, and also ESCAP, which I think we work very closely, as well as ADB. I think would be able to actually provide a sound framework policy based on proper survey or investigation to actually at least work alongside the government and help resolve these issues. And given that 70% of the population are living in the rural areas, of course, agriculture is the main issue that I think we should pay attention to. I mean, I would advocate that we need to look into issues like climate resilience agriculture, Madam mentioned in your speech. I think you touched on that as well. And by that, I'm referring to promotion of practice of agroforestry, conservation of agriculture, crop diversification, soil fertility, reduce erosion, and improve water management, and all these issues that actually I don't want to get into detail. Second is the sustainable water management. It needs to be, because of there are plenty of waters, but the issue has to do also with the soil management because of the island typical kind of soil. It's easily, particularly during the rain season, and given because the impact of climate change, the changing patterns in the rain season actually have really contributed to the erosion and, of course, washed out the agriculture, cultivation, and so on. And that impacted a lot of people. And then the issues of, I think we also introduced climate smart agriculture. We need to introduce tolerant and heat-resistant crop varieties as well. I mean, we need to address these issues in a very specific way. And then also an issue that's still lacking that I think would require the assistance of institutions like these, including some financial institutions, for example, to support the small-scale farmers who have been neglected. And these are the people who also actually, because of the slash and burn practices, have also contributed to the further erosion. And I think it's not only the issue in Timor-Leste, but also in other Southeast Asian and not all Southeast Asian, of course, I think in the region as well. So agroforestry and reforestation is just one thing, and value chain development, market linkages. I think ADB is very much into that. And then climate change adaptation and resilience is also another issue that should be addressed. And of course, on top of all this is the capacity building and policy support. And that actually comes with. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Sararis, for really highlighting the climate impact to island states like Timor-Leste and what we can do to sort of more have an integrated assessment and coming up with a more integrated policy reformulation in the countries. Thank you very much for that. We now move forward to Ms. Katarina Fatomros, sorry, the Deputy Director General of the Department of International Organizations, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand. Sorry about the name. I'll learn how to pronounce it, but
Not at all.
Madame,
Yes,
floor is yours.
It's a difficult name, yes. So thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for ADB, ESCAP, and UNDP, and also the Government of Nepal for organizing this very interesting and very on a very important issue. Thank you very much for inviting Thailand to participate in this event. I think what I will be doing will be rather similar to what Nani and Ibu and also the ambassador of Timor-Leste has mentioned. But for Thailand, I think we look at we at least for me now, we look at this issue from two perspectives. The first one is Thailand as an agriculture country, whereby we have 30% of our total workforce works in the agriculture sector. And the other perspective is Thailand as one of the most at-risk country from the long-term impacts of climate change as well. So the issue of climate change is something very important for us. It's a priority. We have tried to integrate climate action and climate change in our national strategy, particularly our the 20-year national strategy also mentions about addressing climate change. In terms of our agricultural sector, as with other countries in the region, Thailand has experienced multiple effects of climate change, and the total value of loss and damage due to storms and drought and floods in the last decade was high. It was over $160.6 million US. At the same time, the agricultural sector is one of the most emission-intensive sectors as well in the country. So we have a picture of the agricultural sector most affected by climate change, but also as a sector that also contributes to climate change as well. And this is from our rice cultivation. It's from the management of soil, for instance. So this is something that we have to look at. But also at the same time, we have the situation of farmers that do not have the resources and the capacity to take or to work on adaptation actions or take alternative methods to what they are doing. So that's the picture. And also because the lack of capacity links to poverty, I think we have to, the linkage is very clear. Poverty, contributes to part of the reason why the agricultural practices are still not as environmentally friendly as it should be. It's because of the poverty, the lack of resources. But also at the same time, farmers are most affected by climate change. The crop production is affected. Food insecurity is also an issue. So that's the situation. In terms of the poverty reduction in Thailand, I think we have seen good progress. If you look at the report by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Thailand is on track for SDG 1, which is on poverty reduction. But I think the situation of the multiple crises and the COVID-19 has made it or has slowed down the progress. And I think poverty would continue to be a challenge for us, especially for rural communities and for more vulnerable communities. And those would also include farmers. In terms of the promising solutions, I think I looked at the report, the Asia Pacific SDG Partnership Report, and I think in that report you have introduced some very good solutions. Sustainable agricultural practices have been mentioned, decent work, and also climate resilient social protection systems. So there are a lot of I think, and I agree with them, a lot of good solutions. But also in Thailand, I think we are looking at the solution perhaps more from the larger picture of climate action as well. On mitigation itself, we have the mitigation plan for agriculture sector for 2023 to 2027. So it's very much about working on climate action, targeting on a specific sector, as you know, on the agriculture sector. And the aim of that plan is to try to mitigate or try to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. But also it tries to increase the abilities of farmers to adapt to changes in the technologies, and also try to enhance the knowledge and awareness about the impacts of climate change, also to drive, you know, and to build resilience against climate change among the vulnerable communities. Also on adaptation, we have the adaptation guidelines in the agriculture and food sector as well, which emphasize the management of crops, livestock, fisheries. So you know, for us, it's you know, we are looking at it at the solutions from a bigger picture of the climate action. Also, I think we have to look at the solutions also from the a bigger or a development perspective as well. And I think to adopt a more development friendly or development approach is also very important. And just an example from Thailand, some of you may be familiar, we have our development guidelines, the sufficiency economy philosophy, which is our development guidelines, which emphasizes on the human development and on enhancing resilience of individuals and communities. And building on that, we are looking at the bio-circular green economy model, which aims to try to promote economic growth, while also trying to keep a balance or not to put too heavy a burden on the environment as well. So I think looking at it from a bigger development picture is also important. But I think in conclusion, it's very much about, as Madame Ibu has mentioned, it's about working together. It's about integrating the different sectors and working in more integration. Enablers are also very important. It has been mentioned, you know, awareness raising, policy coherence. These are also very important. And I think for Thailand, we are trying to work on this, trying to integrate the efforts from the different sectors. And I think that policies would also need to be based on reliable data, and it has to be context specific, even localized, because different contexts has different challenges. Even in Thailand, the challenges of different localities are different. So I think we have to tailor-make the policies as well. So yes, and back to you, Yoko. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fatumros. This is really great intervention, talking about the bigger development picture and also working with different sectors in particular. Actually, I have a pleasure working with your government in terms of air quality issues coming from agriculture burning. And that also kind of demonstrate the sort of need for working from different sectors, working together on food security as well as environmental perspective and pollution perspective. So thank you very much for that intervention. With that, we'll go to the next speaker, Mr. Stefanos Fotiou, the Director of Office of Sustainable Development Goals and Director of UN Food System Coordination Hub of the FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yoko. And I would like to start by congratulating the team for this report. And for me, it's really even an emotional moment. You know, for 5 years, I was working for this report with the teams. And I must say that, and I say this to the credit of the teams, the quality has improved. And I'm very pleased to see, you know, the very central image for that it's the food systems that they will bring together, the climate, the poverty, and other agendas. So I would like to make 3 points. One is that food systems have the solutions, but right now, if they continue to develop the way they develop, there's no way that they will provide solutions. They will provide more problems. And we had last year an amazing report from FAO. It's called The Future of Food and Agriculture. That says, and I do quote the report, that if current trends of drivers affecting agri-food systems do not change, the sustainability and resilience of these systems will be under a serious threat, and crises are likely to increase in the future. So we need to change the food systems, and there's a process that started almost, I would say 5 years ago. It was not in 2021 we had the summit, but in 2019, where the Secretary General decided to hold the UN Food System Summit. And from this UN Food System Summit, we started to talk about the transformation of agri-food systems. And last September, in the SDG Summit, the agri-food system transformations became one of the 6 acceleration areas. But at the same time, we need to understand that it's not easy to change the perception that it was based on a sectoral approach. Let's look at agriculture, let's look at water, let's look at livestock, to do it a systems approach. And as a follow-up to the UN Food System Summit, this UN Food System Coordination Hub has been established, supported by the entire UN system, but specifically guided by 6 organizations, the 3 ones in Rome, FAO, WFP, and IFAD, and then UNDP, the WHO, and the UN Secretariat through the Development Cooperation. And our focal points is what we call the National Food System Conveners, which is government-appointed officials that they try to implement the transformation pathways. So something that it comes as a demand and as a request and as a gap from them, more than 2/3 of the conveners, they're saying, could you let us know how we will operationalize the systems approach? And then I tell them, it's easier to have so many frameworks and methodologies in FAO. UNDP has done also fantastic work on systems in FAO. We have done a lot of agri-food systems. I say, no, you don't understand. It's not about the theoretical framework. It's how we put it on the field. And I had a very interesting discussion with the Deputy Minister of Agriculture in Rwanda that she told me the following. Every year, she told me, at mid to end of December, she receives a set of key performance indicators from the Office of the President and a budget. And says, you need to achieve this with this budget. And the key performance indicators for her are, no more than half a dozen. And all of them is increased production, increased productivity, increased exports. So she says that what I want to do is to go back and says we need to put some more indicators which are related to healthy diets, to environment. And I say, why don't you do this? She told me, because the moment I'm going to do this, the Minister of Environment will need part of my budget. The Minister of Development will need part of my budget. And then I will not be able to perform. So if we want to change in a systems approach, maybe we need to start thinking the way that we do our budgets and leave from a sectoral budget design to a more system budget design, that it will look at impacts and not on key performance indicators that they are the old school. The second point is that we do have solutions. I think Ibu and Kani have really said a lot of things about the solutions. In FAO, we identify 4 main triggers to change the food system. So one is the strengthening institutions and governance. If we don't change the way that institutions work, cannot do things. The second, extremely important, is to enhance the consumer awareness on the impact of their choices. There is a discussion here. Is it the consumers that they choose or the multinationals that they enforce to them what to choose? And the truth is somewhere in the middle. But I think informed consumers could help. The third is to reimagine fiscal measures for income and wealth distribution. And I know this sounds very revolutionary, but if we don't look at how income and wealth is going to rural areas, we will not solve the problem. And the fourth, Kani already mentioned, utilize innovative technologies and approaches, but not with a perspective to just use the technology for the third point, and I close with this, I want to go back to this report of FAO on the future of food and agriculture, drivers and triggers for transformation. So I quote again because the message is very strong and clear, and I want to say that this is quoted from the report. So the fundamental message of the report is that it is still possible to push agri-food systems along the pattern of sustainability if these four key triggers are properly activated. However, the report continues. Strategic policy options to activate them will have to outsmart vested interests, hidden agendas, and conflicting objectives, and trade off short-term unsustainable achievements for longer-term sustainability, resilience, inclusivity, end of the point. And I think this focus of the trade-offs and the long versus the short term is the key to make our food systems more sustainable and actually put things together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefano, for that really detailed and comprehensive intervention. I think you really emphasized the need for a systemic approach and also a transformation based on trade-offs and also considering a larger sort of development issue with technology and innovation. So thank you very much, Stefano. At this point, I really want to also encourage the online participants to also share your comments and any questions that you may have. You can also refer to the report that has been prepared for this year's the thematic report that prepared between ADB, ESCAP, and UNDP on the climate change, poverty, and hunger as well. And we really look forward to your intervention. So at this point, we are kind of in midpoint, and I really appreciate everybody being on time and very succinct and very clear on your messages. The fourth speaker is Emma Torres, the Vice President of the Americas and Head of New York Office of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Over to you, Emma.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to our hosts. What a timely discussion. I'm very happy also to be here, my old home, UNDP, and with colleagues from ESCAP, FAO, and the Government of Nepal, Thailand, and Timor-Leste. The Sustainable Development Solutions Network is a global network of over 2,000 universities. And the main mission is to contribute to the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement. We issue a flagship report annually called Sustainable Development Report since 2015, the SDR. The SDR provides the most up-to-date data to track and rank all countries' performance of all UN member states on the SDGs. The SDG agenda is and should be the core of the global cooperation as we move to 2030 and up. The sustainable agenda should also be properly financed, and these are one of the main areas that the report advocates. This year's report includes a thematic chapter on SDG 2, End Hunger, Achieve Food Security, Improve Nutrition, and Promote Sustainable Agriculture. SDG 2 faces numerous challenges and shows concerning trends in global progress. 600 million people still suffer from hunger, and the prevalence of undernourishment increased to 10% over the global population since 2021, after many years of decline. According to the SDG Index, none of the 193 UN member states has achieved SDG 2. In the case of East and South Asia, major challenges remain and the trends show stagnation. Climate change, in addition, is having direct impacts on agriculture and labor productivity, food supply chains, food security, and as many of the previous speakers have highlighted, it has tremendous impact in the poorer sectors of the population. The SDG requires long-term public investment plans, transformative pathways, and a mission orientation to provide the public goods and services required to achieve the SDGs. These strategies should have a long-term horizon, provide an integrated framework for local, national, and regional investments to achieve the SDGs. And like Hani was saying also, it's important that this includes innovation, technology, and technological transformation. Achieving sustainable land systems and crucially sustainable food systems is one of the 6 SDG transformations identified by SDSN to ensure the achievement of all SDGs, and one of the most complex of the SDGs transformation. This transformation underpins the achievement of SDG 2, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, SDG 13, climate change, SDG 14, life below water, and SDG 15, life plant, and contributes to the achievement of all the SDGs. Our food and land use system plays a pivotal role in the stability of our planetary boundaries and the Earth system resilience. Agriculture accounts for more than half of the Earth's land surface and 70% of freshwater use, yet is profoundly affected by the worsening climate change, crisis, and increasing water scarcity, whose systems already contribute also to 1/3 of global human-induced greenhouse emissions and are the main driver of biodiversity loss. Hence the importance, as our colleague from FAO was articulating, of the need to transform the food system. A holistic approach is needed to leverage potential synergies and trade-offs associated with the transformation of food and land and sustainable water, and SDGs 6, 12, and 14. Regulations and incentives to prevent the conversion of forests and other biodiversity-rich areas to agricultural land are critical to achieve SDGs 15 and also contribute to SDG 15 climate action. And finally, we would like to articulate very clearly what the Secretary General is advocating for an SDG stimulus plan. Financing is critical for this agenda. And I think it's very much welcome that here with ADB that is already increasing in investment in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emma, for that comprehensive sort of progress and still the challenge of achieving the SDGs, and particularly the importance of financing element and sustainable finance. And as you have heard, ADB is committed also to invest 100 billion towards 2030. And we're kind of in a midpoint right now in progress and actually even overachieving. So with partnership with all others, I think we are able to make some dent and progress in that regard. Thank you, Emma, again. So we'll move forward to the next speaker, Mr. Pratik Rijal. He's a co-founder and COO of the Nepal Tea Collective, and great to have you from Nepal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the invitation among all of our distinguished guests and Ambassador Khatri. Thapa, great to meet you as well. So my family has been in the agricultural industry for about 40 years. 67% of Nepali population depend upon agriculture as their livelihood. However, majority of those farmers live below the poverty line. That's because of the unsustainable and outdated supply chain that exists in this market. These farmers who make these amazing agricultural products coming out of Nepal and most of the Southeast Asian countries, they make less than $5 a day, while these middlemen who are in the process, which add little to no value at all, they make millions and millions of dollars. For the farmers, the problem is they never got an access to international market directly, right? They are dependent on these middlemen to provide them that access to international market, due to which these farmers never get out of these generational cycle of poverty that they have been living for so long. So literally translates to another where, because the agricultural industry is not lucrative enough, youths are not involved in this industry, and youths are immigrating to like other countries for better education. So if you ask me right now, I have a handful of people in Nepal that are my age range who are involved in this industry, because we have never been able to make agriculture a lucrative industry, because identity and branding and addition of value on the ground has never happened before. And then this kind of translates to climate change as well, right? There is this problem of supply chain and all those things. However, farmers are the ones who are facing immense problem because of climate change. There has been change in weather patterns. Even in the tea industry, the dormant period has increased so much that there has been a decrease in yields and all those things. And while we are here discussing about climate change, however, the farmers that are on ground who are facing the reality don't even know that climate change is happening. They know that the weather patterns are changing. There's droughts, there's heavy rainfall when it's not supposed to be, but they do not know why it's happening or how it can be prevented. So my solutions are very cliched in terms of first, in terms of climate change itself, there should be policies where we provide organic certification trainings to so many farmers, so many different organizations are supporting that, and that's great. However, for climate change, I don't think there has been a real work in terms of how can we help these farmers understand, aware, and then come up with solutions that they are able to actually implement that helps climate change. Another is there are so many policies that we make out in the West. However, most of my farmers that I work with, they're uneducated. They didn't get a chance for educational opportunities. So the policies should be designed in such a way that it's relevant for them, not for us who are making the policies, right? And then some of the things that we do at Nepal Tea Collective that is cliched, but at the same time it works, is 1% revenue distribution. So we need to make farmers partners in the business, not just a supplier. With that 1% revenue distribution and tip the farmer feature that we have enabled in all of our packaging, we have actually increased the wages of farmers by about 43%, and that's a lot. Another thing that we do is planting one tea sapling with each and every order that we make, right? So each order comes in, we plant a tea sapling out in Nepal. So what that does is that adds $2 per farmer a year. So the number might sound very less, but think about thousands of orders coming in. There are like thousands of tea saplings that are being planted out in Nepal. That is helping carbon, sequestering carbon, as well as that is increasing the wages of the farmers in the longer run. Another is regenerative agriculture. There has been so much focus on organic. I think it's time for us to focus on regenerative, where we are not just preventing the harm that's done in the environment, but we are actually working towards revitalizing the lands, the ecosystem that most of the farmers are dependent on a daily basis. With that being said, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about Nepal and the agricultural side of things in Nepal. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Pratik, and it's great to have a perspective as a producer and also some of this innovative work that you're doing on the ground. So thank you. Our last speaker, but not least, of course, Ms. April Porteria, Program Officer of the Asia Pacific Forum on Women, Law, and Development. Thank you for being here. Over to you.
Good morning, colleagues, Excellencies, and Ibu. I'm also here as part of the Asia Pacific Regional CSO Engagement Mechanism. We are the official CSO mechanism that facilitates regional participation in the 2030 agenda. And I would just like to say that we have been partnering with ESCAP since the beginning of the SDGs 11 to 12 years back. So we're very happy that we continued this partnership. My response to the question is actually based on our collective analysis by the regional mechanism produced in the 11th APFSD in Bangkok last February. And we usually cite a lot the ESCAP report, particularly the progress report. And SDG 2, it says that overall progress is 17%, way below the 50% target. And I think we were talking about this not just today, but as Stefan said, 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, but still, we are not at par on the targets. And we also keep citing this civil society that, we need 32 years more to achieve the goals. And we really need to act very, very fast on that. And yeah, just to also note that as I mentioned, no, we have been talking about this years ago. The World Food Program actually states back in 2016 how the climate crisis will impact agriculture and the small food producers. In addition, you have I think all of us have been feeling El Nino and the high heat as we walked here from our hotels, right? But this has big impacts on the small farmers. So they have been they the usual crop, as as Pratik was also sharing, and these extreme weather patterns are specifically impacting the small farmers who are not able to cover the losses and damages to this crop. So in this, we also reiterate, I think one mentioned on climate financing. And yeah, what we mean by climate financing on the civil society part is also just and equitable. No, it's really to ensure that the financing will go to the needed population. And I think, yeah, nobody mentioned this, but we would also like to note that the macroeconomic, social, political issues could have impacts on SDG 2. So for instance, there's really a rise of monopoly in terms of control of seeds, pesticides, etc. So ETC Group report, I'm citing their report that for example, just 4 multinational companies are controlling half of the world's commercial seeds and 62% of the pesticide market. So it's basically controlling the whole food system. What we eat, it's really alarming. Meanwhile, the largest 1% of the farms operate more than 70% of the farmlands globally. And I think, yeah, this is also an important conversation, how this current food system is highly unsustainable. I remember I was in UNEA 5 years back, and the theme was on SCP, Sustainable Consumption and Production. And back then, we were already talking about the adverse environmental impacts. 5 years now, we're still talking about it, and the SDGs could not be achieved anywhere, right? So we would like to reiterate that there's really, aside from the food system, so we need to look at the structures behind and who controls which. So as civil society, we would like to put forward some, specific recommendations as well. So for instance, the framework of feminist food sovereignty. So civil society, feminist groups have been campaigning on this, inclusive of indigenous, women's access, control of land and resources. Yeah, Pratik was actually sharing some good examples from the producer's perspective. And of course, the meaningful engagement of the communities in the process. Another one is, as I mentioned, we would like to bring the attention to the growing corporatization of the food, who controls which, how much, etc. And also, we highly recommend the much needed review and ensure accountability mechanisms of the proposed solution. So I've heard some like the green financing, e-commerce, carbon markets, climate smart agriculture, and also foreign direct investments. Because coming from our communities, we have actually years of experience how these so-called investments are impacting, like displacements. The honorable representative from Timor-Leste was actually mentioning about community displacement as well. And finally, as I mentioned, the needed climate financing that is just, equitable. And also, just to add that civil society has a lot to offer. So we're also very glad that we have a say in this table, but we hope in decision making, in policy making, we could be contributors as well, no, in terms of a different perspective. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, April, for bringing in that women's perspective and the importance of having a feminist approach, as well as just an equitable sort of approaches towards food security and climate change response. This is great. I know that at this point we are kind of extended already 5 minutes. We really wanted to hear from the audience some questions and answers, but I think we need to start wrapping up. So I'm really sorry, but you can always reach out to all the speakers. We will be sharing the contacts of the speakers as well as myself and UNDP and ESCAP colleagues, so that you can reach out and have further dialogue outside of this side event. So with this, I would like to really invite the closing remark from His Excellency Mr. Lok Bahadur Tapa, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Nepal at this point after this really rich, diverse panel and opening remarks. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tapa.
Thank you, Madam Moderator and Madam Kani, ambassadors, colleagues, Denisio, and a colleague from Thailand, all the distinguished panelists, representative of CSOs, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to be here at this, I believe, very important side event. I thank the ESCAP-ADB and UNDP for co-organizing this event along with the Government of Nepal. I thank our excellent panelists for your very insightful and comprehensive the presentations. Together, I think we have delved into the very pressing issues of climate change, poverty, hunger, and their intersection. The escalating impacts of climate change pose a serious threat to the already vulnerable and disaster-prone Asia-Pacific region's development progress and add complexities to the fight against poverty and hunger. It is undeniable that those who are the poorest or in the most vulnerable situations are impacted the most, as they find themselves more exposed and less able to adapt to disaster events and crises. Nepal is no exception in this context. As you know that Nepal is graduating from LDC status by 2026. We aim to be a middle income country by 2030 with the achievement of sustainable development goals. Yet we have been facing multiple challenges to realize the development goals and our prosperity agenda. As a panelist, Pratik has already highlighted some of the problems and challenges. And more particularly, the grassroots people, the farmers are facing in terms of productive capacity, technology, and access to market, value chain, etc. Moreover, the lingering effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, growing conflicts, geopolitical tensions, climate crisis have further exacerbated our existing risks and vulnerabilities. Here, I would like to highlight the three areas with great potential for integrated solution to address interlinked challenges of climate change, poverty, and hunger. Those areas are promoting sustainable food systems, ensuring just transition and decent work, and developing climate resilient social protection systems. I call upon countries in the region to shape their policies accordingly. During our discussion on tackling these intertwined challenges and solutions, a few points emerge, and I would like to highlight some of them. First is the need for integrated approaches and comprehensive policies that recognize the complex relationship across the challenges. This involves ensuring that policies are coherent and holistic, taking into account how environmental, economic, and social factors intersect, and engaging all relevant stakeholders in policy development and implementation. Second, while scaling of private and public sector finance and investment is crucial, it is equally important to have well-coordinated mechanisms that guide and support investments in using integrated approaches. Third, it is important to strengthen innovative capabilities and harness innovations and technology inclusively to ensure equitable access and opportunity for unserved and underserved communities. Lastly, strengthening multilateralism is crucial to addressing these complex transboundary challenges posed by climate change. Regional cooperations can open up avenues for joint initiatives, transfer for technologies, additional financing, and sharing of good practices, which contribute significantly to regional solution and prosperity. As we conclude this side event, I thank the discussants and participants for your active engagement in enriching our discussions with valuable insight and experiences. Your points in the earlier discussions are invaluable in finding solutions and charting the course to effectively address the challenges at the nexus of climate change, poverty and hunger. With these words, I thank you for your attention. I look forward to more engagement in the process. I thank you.
Very much, Ambassador Tapa, for that great concluding remark, summarizing such a rich discussion today at this side event. At this point, I really want to thank you, everyone, for participating today, and also particularly the ESCAP and UNDP, and particularly the Government of Nepal for co-hosting this really rich discussion regarding climate change, poverty, and hunger in Asia and Pacific. And through these partnerships and continued thematic report like this that we will be working on in the high-level political forum, we hope that we would be addressing this nexus issue, and particularly on how we can put efforts together to address the poverty as well as climate change challenge, both on mitigation and adaptation through these collaborations. So with that, thank you very much for all of you, and thank you for the audience through the online participants in particular. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
I think so. I think so too. No, I advise you.
Oh, you base
Thank you.